Welcome to the Latvian Football Podcast, where in this yet another special installment of the podcast, we are going to talk about the next opponents of Latvian clubs in Europe. Last week was a bit of a mixed basket with RFS getting beat through and through by Bodo Glimt 7-1 on aggregate, I believe. Not a wholly deserved result if you're looking at what happened on the field, but such as the difference in the quality between the teams in front of goal. Auda progressed, which is a wonderful surprise and a story that keeps on giving. And of course, Riga suffered a terrible heartbreak in Śląsk in Wroclaw. But we have things to look forward to. We have two teams still continuing in Europe. RFS dropping down to Europa League Qualification Round 3, where they will face an Andorran side, UE Union Esportiva Santa Coloma. And Auda are facing a Kosovo side, FC Drita. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. What do you think of last week?
I think it was a very interesting week of football, and it was actually nice to see Latvian teams be exceptionally competitive. I think player to player, there wasn't that much. There were some differences, but each player stood up and demonstrated their abilities and talent. I think if you want to talk about RFS, what let them down was that there was a very, very exceptionally well-drilled team that followed a specific system, whereas Riga FC, they outplayed and they had Wroclaw on the ropes. So they could have gone through easily, and it was a bit of luck from that side. And Auda, I think they're slowly starting to gel into a very good, dangerous team.
Yeah. Well, with RFS and Bodo, obviously Bodo is a team that is of much higher value and much higher quality, having overcome Jose Mourinho's Roma not too long ago with a similar score. And I feel like if there is, of course, still the chance that RFS could have maybe pulled out a draw at some place, especially in the return leg when they scored first and really were in something of a control for most of the first half. But playing a team like that, everyone needs to be at 110%, and not everyone was, and you really can't expect them to be. So, we lost, and that's just the way things are. With respect to Auda, their draws are just so fortunate. And I love it.
Yeah, it's a good thing with Auda. With RFS Bodo, I felt the RFS players were like dancers around some very fixed statues. And I mean, Bodo, the system, how they've developed as a club, like every youth team plays the same formation. I mean, it was great to see them playing. I mean, it was great to have them in Latvia, and I think it's an experience that we'll remember for a long time. And hopefully, it will inspire a lot of clubs as well to learn and research the Bodo model, and potentially to help themselves by developing similar systems.
Yeah, Riga had Śląsk Wrocław beat 3 out of 4 halves. And sadly, it was that the last 45 minutes of the 180 minutes that they just let it go. 2 quick-fire goals from Śląsk at home. One, I think the consensus is that Materis should have taken that long shot. But it is how it is. And then that crossbar from a free kick from El Bashir that didn't go in, that could have pushed the game potentially into extra time, plus a red card. It went from a fairy tale to a nightmare just in a second, really, and it still hurts me thinking back to that game.
Yeah, I think that we were all communicating about it on WhatsApp during the game, and we were all feeling quite self-assured and positive about Riga. I think the refereeing decision, it was a very poor referee on the night. That red card was, both players seemed to suddenly dive down and lie on the ground, and exceptionally harsh. But that's football. I think Riga had a lapse of concentration just after half time. the Wroclaw manager must have really shouted at his players because they came out and just 6 minutes or 7 minutes of where 2 goals were scored in such a short period of time. And as the Riga managers said in the past, it's the lapses of concentration that lose the game. And that was the case. And the penalty was a stupid penalty to give away as well. But I've not seen the Riga players perform to that level like they did and demonstrate why they're playing for Riga and why they're the highest players in the league. They outclassed the team at times, and they dominated possession and they bossed them around the pitch. And I think it was really, really unlucky. But maybe that's a difference in levels. It's where concentration comes in, and where you can't make mistakes and switch off for one moment because you'll get taken down. And that's what happened in that game. Straight after half time, 2 goals and then a red card, as you say, and that was it. It was over for Riga. But that was the most impressive performance I've seen from Riga in my time watching the VS Liga and European nights. I think they really, really switched it on, and their players really demonstrated quality. They completely controlled the game at times.
I couldn't agree more. Riga looked like not a Champions League level team, but certainly a candidate. They looked fantastic. And I would even dare to say that they looked better than RFS did against Bodo. Or, I mean, better obviously depends better how or better in what, but maybe flashier, maybe more fluid, maybe more concentrated. So
Yeah,
kudos to Riga on that.
Agree. I agree. I think Riga demonstrated that in that game. They lost. They won one, lost one. They demonstrated they've got the quality to be the best team in this league. And I think individual players were a slightly better level at times than some of the RFS players.
Yeah. I mean, that's no news, but yeah, just it's a shame. It's a shame Riga got a tough draw, even if they've gotten through Śląsk. The next is St. Gallen from Switzerland, which is a formidable team. So where Auda keeps getting the best draws imaginable and keeps maybe not entirely convincingly going through, Riga have gotten the worst draws of any Latvian team.
But this is European football, and Riga want to be a big-ish club for whatever tier of league or level of clubs they're playing, and they're going to have to play Swiss clubs, they're going to have to play Polish clubs, they're going to have to play any club through Europe, and they have the players to challenge these different clubs, and whatever the draw, that's football, and it's a harsh game to watch sometimes, and it can be heartbreaking. But I believe that every team's got to believe that they can take on any team as well. And you saw that, like Bodo, like Norwegian clubs haven't necessarily been that good in Europe. Like Rosenborg were a dominant team, and they used to get absolutely hammered in the Champions League. Bodo, they've developed a team, a club, players, a system, and they are fearless. And you saw they beat Roma, they beat Celtic, I believe. Every Latvian club needs to believe that they can get to this level, because football, you can go anywhere in football if there's a good club system and players that are focused and have the motivation. I think, as an eternal optimist.
No, I agree. What I'm saying is that they can play the likes of and get hammered by the likes of Real Madrid or Bodo in the league stage. So let's get to there on an easy path or a manageable path.
I think Bodo are challengeable. I think if you can match how they play. And they're Latvian clubs, they currently look like a lot of players are making too many mistakes at the moment, and they're being really let down by their first touch. There's a lot of like ball being received and they're not quite doing enough, I think. And then we've discussed set pieces as well. There's a big area for improvement. I think set pieces, first touch, and concentration. You know, I think that's been the biggest problem this season. But we'll be talking about the Liga in our next episode. But they were the things that made the difference with RFS and Riga. Auda, I think, new manager. I think they are very motivated right now, and they've got a really positive attacking style of football, and they can mix it up a little bit as well, as we saw against Daugavpils this weekend.
Yeah, well, past is the past. Let's look forward to what's next. And next are Europa League Qualification Round 3, UE Santa Coloma, the Andorran champions, the surprising Andorra champions. Well, when I was researching them, and we were supposed to have an expert come and join us, but they couldn't make it. So it's going to be the two of us talking about things we know nothing about. So let's see how that goes. And so Santa Coloma. Apparently there are two Santa Colomas in Andorra, FC and UE, and so we're talking about the UE one for the champions. A interesting country. A club is a bit less so, but maybe that's just because of we don't know enough about it, and it's not that easy to find out that much about it on Flash Score. The Andorran Championship is not really covered in as much detail. So we did our best. What we can tell is that it's... Oh, hang on. If we're talking about this, need to get the proper attire. There we go.
Right.
So
lucky omen.
Yeah. So they do tend to play 4-3-3, at least in Europe. This year they surprisingly knocked out Balkani from Kosovo in qualification round 1, losing 2-1 at home, but then winning 2-1 away and progressing on penalties. They are a foreigner-dominated squad, although given what Andorra is, that's less important.
Yeah, I looked at their squads, and they've got a lot of Spaniards, but you know, when you consider the geographical position. Have you been to Andorra before?
I have not been to Andorra. It looks fantastic.
In the Pyrenees, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
It's a tiny state sandwiched between Spain and France. The legend has it that it's been established by Napoleon during his wars in the bleeding ulcer of Spain that he referred to. It has a very as a country. It's fascinating. I have to admit I didn't know that much about it. So reading up on it, it's like their form of government is brilliant. It's co-governed by whoever is the president of France and a bishop of like Catalan or something. So
I was not aware of that. That's interesting.
And then they nominate a prime minister, and then it kind of gets normal from that point on. But this head of state thing is very interesting. They don't have a standing military, which makes sense.
You wouldn't really they're only going to be invaded by Spain or France in the worst case scenario.
But much like Switzerland, they have this thing where every household is expected to maintain a firearm, and if it's an area weapon such as a shotgun, you don't need a permit. If it's a ranged weapon, then you do, but basically you're supposed to have one in case of emergency, and then everyone grabs one and the whole country becomes a militia, basically.
I didn't know that. That's a bit worrying with being in such a prominent Schengen zone, where if you're going from that point of France to get to Spain, you go for Andorra.
Yeah, but they haven't fought anything for 700 years, so no worries there.
What was their last battle, their last war that they were in?
I don't know, what was 700 years ago, 1300s, some regional, maybe War of Succession at that point.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. It looks beautiful. It's sitting basically in the Pyrenees. The capital, where Santa Coloma is based, well, just outside, is the highest elevated capital in Europe at over a kilometer up in the sky.
I've driven through it.
Yeah,
it's
you have.
A windy road. Yeah. It's a windy road to get to. But I mean, the Pyrenees is an absolutely stunning mountain range. It's a beautiful place. But yeah, I recall cigarettes and alcohol being exceptionally low cost. I think it used to be. I've not been there for maybe 10 years, so maybe things have changed.
It is a tax haven, so that would make sense. It is one of the European tax havens that's part of their economy alongside tourism, which
Skiing is a
brings
big
in,
thing. They've
yeah,
got
they have the
big ski.
largest ski slopes in Europe, so that's a major
Ah,
thing.
I didn't know that. I didn't know they was the largest, but
Apparently, at least on some metric. And they
okay.
bring in like 10 million tourists a year, and given their population, which is I think about the size of Daugavpils, that's very impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, it's one of these European microstates similar to Luxembourg, San Marino, Liechtenstein, Stein. So, I mean, so when you compare that, when it comes to football, you've got to kind of expect a microstate club where they sh they it shouldn't be a Latvian club that loses to an Andorran team will be in trouble. It will be a bad advert for the country.
Yeah, Latvian champions who lose to an Andorran team. But there is this thing, and I think it was a little bit with Larn as well, that because of the place that football has in Latvian consciousness, it's a little bit of a thing like everyone can play it other than us, which is extremely unfair and something that absolutely should be fixed and reversed. But even besides that, if you look at this team on paper, its value on transfer market is about the same as that of Auda and that Liepa had
Okay.
when back in the better days. It's about 5 million, which for a microstate team that weren't even the favorites to win the title last year is very, very impressive. Most of their squad are Spanish nationals. All right, they haven't played for any significant team in Spain, but they would have still gone through Spanish academies. And we have one of those in Riga, Brian Peña. We see what he
Yeah.
can do. Very technical, possession oriented, quick passing
Yeah,
football.
and Andorran national teams have also been quite physical as well, I recall.
Yeah,
But I mean, the word of warning is that they beat the Kosovan champions and Balkani,
Balkani, yeah.
and then they haven't necessarily done too bad in Europe. And Kosovo has a 1.5 million population, so when you're looking at the comparisons with Kosovo and Latvia, yeah, should be a bit more equal. So yeah, be alert, RFS, but yeah, be prepared and make sure that you win this game.
But that's looking at them kind of on paper. And it looks like it could be trouble. It could be something that's underestimated and maybe a potential, might be harder than it should be. But then I went to look at some of the videos from their games against Balkani, which was, by the way, their first win in Europe since their debut in 2010. So they haven't done that well in Europe at all. They lost everything until Balkani. So and watching highlights, that really calmed me down quite a lot. I'm not
Okay.
trying to be uncharitable to Santa Coloma, and it is the highlights, obviously. It's not the full games. And they just seem, well, okay, first of all, the Andorran season doesn't start until mid-September. They're off season
That's
now.
one benefit. That's the
Y-
one benefit of Latvian teams in Europe.
Yeah, and we
I
saw
mean,
what
Bodo
happened
is a
with
different
Larn.
case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bodo Norwegian season takes a pause in summer, but it has been ongoing before, so they're fit. Larn and Cliftonville struggled physically against Latvian teams,
I
and
think
it's similar with Andorra.
you see that every season, a slightly chubbier Irish team. Well, past 2 seasons now, slightly chubbier, less match fit, less match sharp team coming over pre-season, just off the sunbeds, straight onto the pitch.
Yeah, so it might be similar with Santa Coloma, although they would have played 4 games already, which is still not that much. Um, they, at least in the highlights, really struggled to track back in defense. At some points, I was looking at the games, and it would either be that the opposing team is like to the entire left side of the box, and all the defenders are to the right side. And then once the cross is made, they're all caught flat-footed, and they're just not positioned well. They don't seem to run back all that happily. So many of the highlights I've seen, they just get outnumbered by a counterattack, and the guy is just like casually strolling back the holding midfielder. So defensively, they seem to be deficient, both in terms of fitness, positioning, and discipline. And we know how RFS play. They will overwhelm those zones. They will challenge them. And I don't know if Andorran's side will have answers to those challenges. In terms of attacking play, yeah, there are some very technical players, and they did score a couple of goals, but I haven't really seen anything that would be a cause for worry. There wasn't like a Niang there for Riga FC who just running circles around defenders. Not at all. Okay, couple of defensive players. RFS will put 2 defenders on them. Shouldn't be a problem. They're used to dealing with that in the domestic championship as well as in Europe. So all in all, the only concern is that the away game for RFS will be at a high elevation, which is something they're not used to.
Yeah, but they've got a few players from Slovenia and so on, RFS and Georgia, so they should be able to be used to playing at higher altitudes.
I don't think they'll lose any of the games, but the away result might be a little bit more tense than the home one. At home, and I haven't checked this, but I believe the Andorran pitch is artificial as well. But the game at Eljon should be no problem really, and that's going to be the second game of the tie, so the decisive one. All in all, not really as worried as I was before, but obviously not to get complacent. Same as with Larn, we were warning not to get complacent. In the end, 7-0 aggregate.
You could never get complacent. There's no point ever going to a football match thinking you're going to win. You don't help your psychology and your personal motivation to want to win those balls and be on top of each part of the pitch you need to be.
And then if RFS go through, they go through to the playoff round of the Europa League, which already guarantees them Conference League stage. And if they do not go through, they drop down to playoff round of Conference League, where they might play Flora Tallinn.
Branch Baltic derby, that would be cool.
We have Livonian League for that, so let's try to avoid this scenario. But
yeah, we'd like to see an Estonian and a Latvian team in European club competitions.
And a Lithuanian. Let's just get all 3 in there.
Yeah. But Zalgiris lost to Paphos.
Yeah, but Panevėžys is doing well, or about as well as RFS in Europe.
Yeah, interesting. Well, fingers crossed for this next round, and that leads us on to Auda. Who have Auda got next?
Well, you know this because you will be taking an interview with an expert that has shown up from Kosovo, and Auda have FC Drita, which I know nothing about, but hope to learn from you about.
We're delighted to be joined by Eljon from Kosovo Football, who can be found on Twitter and other social media. Eljon is an expert in Kosovan football, the national team, and the league as well. And as the next opponents are FC Drita in the European club competitions, we're here to get a bit more information from Eljon on the league. How are you today?
Yeah, hello, fine. Yeah, I'm fine.
You're very good. Okay, so I guess let's just start looking at Kosovan football and the history. Similar to the history of Latvian football, you come from a league that has had to endure plenty of changes and challenges. In Latvia's case, the occupation by the Soviet Union completely stopped a historic league from developing and maturing. Clubs therefore have had to develop just in the past couple of decades. You come from the youngest country in Europe. So tell us a little bit more about the Kosovan League and how it has got to where it is today.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind it, I will go back a bit back further in the original starting of football in Kosovo. Our football started in the early 20s and 30s when the first football club were formed in the biggest Kosovo cities like Jakova, Peja, Mitrovica, and Pristina. Sadly, a football association of Kosovo wasn't formed at the time, so our clubs didn't have any competitive match or didn't participate in any competition. This lasted until the 1942, when the Italian occupation over Balkans in World War II united Kosovo and Albania. So our clubs were able to participate in the Albanian Categoria Superiore. And then after the World War II was finished, the older borders were reestablished. So Kosovo returned back to Yugoslavia. I think if I'm not wrong, in 1948, the Yugoslavian Football Association was reformed, was reestablished, and Kosovo was part of the Yugoslavian Football Union. So since 1948, Kosovo clubs started participating in the Yugoslavian football. The early years were really bad, I could say, because Kosovo League was ranked really low. The Kosovo League was kind of considered a sub-league of Serbia. So our clubs were firstly had to be champions of Kosovo, be champions of Kosovo Macedonia region, then be champions of Serbia and qualify for the Yugoslavian elite divisions. This lasted until 1974, when the new Yugoslav constitution made Kosovo equal to all the Yugoslavic republics. So Kosovo League would now send its champion directly to the second league of Yugoslavia. This area marked the what we call golden era of Kosovo football, because many good players were promoted, like Fadil Bokri, one of them, and many good teams took part in Yugoslavia elite divisions, like Tepcha and Pristina, who were participants in Yugoslavia First League, and other teams like Zlaznimi from Jakova or Budućnost from Peja, who were often qualified for the second league of Yugoslavia.
So clubs started to develop and mature a little bit in the 70s. That was a key period, would you say?
Yeah, that lasted sadly until the 91, when Yugoslavia started collapsing. The Kosovo Albanian were discriminated from the Serbian occupation of the time because the nationalism rose. Kosovo Albanians lost all their powers. They were expelled from their clubs, and clubs were forced to get out of the football stadiums. And that marks a downfall of our football. And this bad thing peaked in Kosovo War, where everything, the infrastructure, everything we built during Yugoslavia were all flushed away. And it took us a lot of reforms, a lot of hard work to reconstruct that league that once we have. And thankfully in 2016, we were admitted as member UEFA. And since then, our football had a second explosion, I would say, in quality. Since 2016, our football rose. Of course, the UEFA membership gave us a big hand on our rise, which peaked the last 2 seasons with Balkani qualifying twice for the Conference League group stages.
Okay, very interesting. Because I saw FK Auda's opposition, FC Drita, they were split into 2 teams in the 90s. Is that correct?
For FC Drita.
Yeah, they were turned into 2 teams in the 90s, or?
Yeah, it was. The story of Drita is different, because in Gilan there was one big club. It was Crvena Zvezda of Gilan, and that was mainly managed from Serbians. Albanians didn't have a place on that. We're kind of discriminated. So the Albanians created another club in the same city, was like split from Crvena Zvezda Gilan. It was named Drita, which means light in Albanian. But the same thing happened with.
Sorry, what does it mean? Could you? I can't hear you a little bit, so if you can be a bit louder. But what does it translate as in Albanian?
Light. It means light.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, very interesting. So 70s, a good period, 90s, a complete downfall, and then 2016 being recognised by UEFA was quite a defining period for Kosovan football.
Yeah.
And so do you feel UEFA has really helped steer the direction of modern day Kosovan, the Super League and the overall clubs and national team as well? Has it had the biggest impact, would you say?
Yeah, yes, of course, because UEFA provided the Football Federation with many trainings, I would say. They forced our federation to reform the league structure. So our league used to have 12 or 16 teams in the past. Now we have a league of 10 teams, which is more modern, produces more quality, it's more competitive, and the strongest clubs from Kosovo participate on it. So yeah, UEFA has a big hand on our progress.
Okay. So from 2016 all the way 2017 and 18 was quite a good period for some Kosovan clubs. They beat Malmo, had 31 games unbeaten. Tell us a little bit about the periods that after UEFA recognition then.
Yeah, in 2016 we was admitted the national team was unexperienced, so national team had quite a difficult couple of years, especially in the World Cup qualifiers. We faced tough opponents, and until 2018, the introduction of Nations League, our national team was very low in quality. The Nations League helped us promote a lot, move to the League C, and also have that record of 30 matches unbeaten. As for our clubs, the first season, 16-17 season, we weren't able to participate because, before the UEFA membership, clubs were low on finances, the infrastructure was really bad, and our clubs weren't able to participate in the first season. The second season was also awful, with both our teams participating. Trepča and Pristina weren't able to get a single win, neither draw. But after that, the reform on the Champions League introduced the preliminary rounds, and our clubs were able to play same level of teams like clubs from Andorra, Gibraltar, and they were very successful. And that helped us a lot, gain a lot of coefficient points, and we did a big jump in UEFA ratings.
So the preliminary rounds have had quite a positive impact on the standard of football and helping Kosovan teams become more competitive, would you say?
Yeah, both in terms of coefficient points and both in terms of revenue.
Would you say the best win has been Kosovan team beating Malmo from Sweden? What's been the big moment for Kosovan teams in Europe club competitions?
I would say Balkania reaching the group stages twice. Yeah, that was our biggest moment in.
Okay, what years were they in the group stages?
Well, the performance in group stages weren't that good, but the Balkania win against Sivasspor last season with a huge comeback, it was an exciting game. I would say that was one of the best.
Yeah, well, and whenever a club gets into a group stage, I think it has a really positive impact for the club and it's particularly in a small country, the country itself as well. So you've been playing in Kosovan clubs have been playing in European competitions since 2018 to 19. They managed to qualify twice. Including the successes in the league. How about FC Drita itself, FK Auda's opponent? What's your opinion of them and how they've played in Europe?
Yeah, Drita is one of our clubs who have participated the most in European competition. I think it's their sixth season they're participating, which makes them the most experienced side from Kosovo in club competitions. Drita is very respected side from other European clubs, mostly because of their experience, but also their good results. We in Kosovo call them unlucky because Balkani often got easy opponents in their path to the group stages, but this sadly didn't happen with Drita. They faced big clubs like Malmo, Antwerp, Victoria Pilsen, and also Feyenoord. If you remember, that season Feyenoord nearly got disqualified from Drita, and then after that match they went and got the second place in the Conference League in that exact same season, which tells a lot about Drita quality.
So
Yeah.
they also have a very good defense. I see they conceded the least amount of goals lost last season, 25 goals. Their most valued player is a defender, Eljon Kastrati. Are they known for having a very, very strong defense? Where are their strengths in their team?
Yeah, they're known to have a good defensive side, mostly because also of their midfield. They have a qualitative midfield which allows Drita to keep the ball position, and then thanks to their wingers who are very fast to make explosive counterattacks, fast counterattacks, and score goals. So yeah, keeping the possession and then with counterattacks damaging the opponent. It's known as the strategy.
Yeah. So they tend to sit back and wait for the opponent to make mistakes.
Yeah. If you could solve the match against Breidablik, which was a tough one because Breidablik was a side that qualified for the group stages of the last season, this was the strategy they used mostly. They sit back, a strong defense, and then with counterattacks they scored 2 quick goals, and yeah, they sealed the match.
Okay, and so what typical formations do they play, and where are their main threats? Would you say it's not conceding goals, having a solid defense, and then a very fast wingers, or does their midfield have a good system of transitioning play?
Yes, that exactly. They play the usual model in now modern football. They play the 4-5-1 formation, which have become common in modern football, which allows them to do exactly what we said, to have a strong midfield who controls the ball, and then thanks to their wingers, Isaiah, also Selmani, do quick counterattacks. If you could see Selmani goal against Breidablik, he was a quality player. It was a very good goal, beautiful goal.
Okay, excellent. What's your opinion of the manager? What do you think of the manager, and where's he been successful with the team? Is he a motivator? Is he a very good tactician? Have they bought some very good players? Where do you feel the manager's strengths are?
Zeki Ramadani, it's good you mentioned it. The head coach is one of the most experienced in Kosovo football. He has been here since a long period, and he has won the Super League 3 times with 3 different teams. And now he's aiming to do the same with Drita, win the 4th with his 4th squad. He's one of the main persons who, yes, of course, have his merit on this Drita success. He's very experienced, and yes, it's a good coach.
Okay, and what would you say their weaknesses are? What have been FC Drita's weaknesses in the past, and where did they struggle last season? Do they didn't seem to score as many goals as the other 3 teams in the top 3 teams in the league, but they clearly have a very solid defense. Where do you see the weaknesses within the team?
Yeah, that's quite a good question. I think most of the people that followed us until now will ask that because they will think, yeah, they have a good coach, they have a good player. What happened last season? Well, I would say the quality of Drita, beside having some good players, the quality of the team is still low. I mean, compared to Balkani and Latvia, who are strong clubs, who are huge clubs in Kosovo. So I think they need a little bit more investment. Qualifying for this year league phase would help them a lot, of course, in terms of revenue, and move them from the good level to the best level. So I think that's one of their weakness. So they're a good side, but not that close to Latvian Balkani in terms of quality. Also, yeah, as per last season, it was a bad season for them, mostly because of letting like games slip off their hand, not finalizing their matches, and yeah, poor management who
So,
made them lose the title race.
so they weren't clinical enough. They lacked a few quality players, and maybe do they not have a squad with enough depth? Do you feel they need a few more fringe players to fill those spaces when players pick up injuries and so on? Do you feel squad size is an issue?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Okay, tell us a little bit about their supporters. I've read a little bit about them and the kind of reputation they have. We just recently had the Wroclaw supporters from Poland turn up to Riga with a bit of a up and down reputation. I guess they certainly created a good reputation, but I think the police were a bit wary of them. They came and left and in suitable enough behaviour, other than a few prompt points on social media about how they treated how they behaved around the national monument and so on. But do you expect them to travel to the away game and tell us a little bit about the FC Drita's supporters?
Yeah, FC Drita supporters, or I would call Ultras group. It's called Intellectuale. They're one of the, alongside Plisa from Pristina, they're the top two Tifo groups from Kosovo. I mean, the biggest in size and also with the best reputation. They're known for filling the stadiums in their home games, travel a lot in mass because they move from Zidane, as Zidane has not a licensed stadium to play the European games. So they travel en masse on Pristina or sometimes even in Mitrovica. They're a good fan group, known for their beautiful choreographies, also being loud in the stands. Sadly, before this year, Kosovo had a visa regime, so our citizens couldn't allow to move freely in Europe. They have to acquire visas, which made it impossible for our fans to travel and support their team on the traveling games. So let's see this year. I hope many Drita fans can travel to Riga. That would be interesting. That would be beautiful. But also our large diaspora. Kosovo have a big diaspora, mostly Nordic places. Let's hope they can travel to Latvia and yeah, make a good atmosphere. This is why football is for fans traveling, those emotions.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Can they get visas now? Is it possible to travel more for Kosovans now in Europe, or is it still a challenging?
Yeah, now visas we got rid of visas since January the 1st, so our citizens can move freely in Europe.
And would you say that even though they play in a completely different ground for Europe, is it quite an intimidating away game for visiting teams? They have a certain reputation, Balkan teams, particular for intimidating experiences.
No, I would say Kosovo is more peaceful compared to the other Balkan states. So yeah, it's mostly good. I never seen away fans complaining. The only thing I heard them complaining is the warm weather in Kosovo, the Kosovo heat in summer. That's the only difficulty they have. They never had clashes with our home fans, and they enjoy their trip in Kosovo. The Albanians are a very welcoming nation, so they enjoy the time in Kosovo.
Okay, very, very interesting. Yeah, from my experiences in that region, you guys are such wonderful, warm hosts and always very welcoming. And if any Kosovans do end up visiting Latvia, I hope they'll be able to enjoy Latvian hospitality as well. So, final point. What is your predictions for the game? How do you see the game going? Have you looked at FK Auda and what are your thoughts on FK Auda and what are your predictions?
To be honest, this is the first season that I've seen Auda. I haven't known them from before. It was a new name for me. I think also the club is new in European competition. If I'm not wrong, this is their only second season participating. But I've seen they got a good couple of results. They have uh, faced challenging squads, so they're not a side to be neglect. So say it's an easy game on paper. I think Auda should be respected. It has good result. Hard work sent them to this stage. So yeah, I face a challenge. I predict a challenging duel for both clubs, especially the away game from Drita. I think Auda can cause us a lot of problems, but in overall, I think Drita is more experienced and have a higher quality. So I see them passing uh, this round, but not an easy one.
Not an easy game. I think it will be close. You might be right. Experience might be make a difference. I think FK Auda are they're very quick at the moment, and they also have a Slovenian manager who I'm sure understands Balkan football a little bit as well. So that might be interesting from that aspect. I'm certainly looking forward to this game. I think it will be a good one. There's been a few Balkan teams visit in the past. FK Auda are on good form, and I think the Slovenian manager, the new guy, he's really had a positive impact on the team. So we'll see. But it's been really good talking to you, and thank you so much, Eljon, for sharing your thoughts. You have some wonderful knowledge. So yeah, thank you for your time, and we look forward to at some point crossing paths again. Whether it's more Kosovan clubs playing against Latvian clubs, or discussing the end results of this fixture. But yeah, thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed this podcast.
Thank you so much. And for anyone listening and watching, please feel free to share your thoughts and comments on how you see this game going, and particularly on FK Auda, and where you see them being a threat and where they might go in Europe. We're also continuously looking for people who would like to volunteer for the Latvian Football Podcast. So feel free to send us a message anytime if you want to attend games and share your content. But overall, thanks so much for listening, and keep on loving football. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.